What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Good Success Quick Tips. I'm Josh Culler, and back with me again we have Pete Richter, who is our salesman for all of Indiana, over in East Indiana, Central Indiana, around the Indianapolis area, and down towards Evansville in Southern Indiana. He just doesn't have Northwest Indiana in the Chicagoland area, so he commands the entire Indiana area there. So today he's going to actually talk about negotiating a deal. Now, Pete's been at this for a very long time. He's talked to a lot of buyers, a lot of people that are interested in buying even if they haven't bought, and he's negotiated with these people. So he's going to talk about that today. So Pete, what do you have for us today?
All right, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. We've talked in previous quick tips about the numbers that make a deal worth it to both you as the seller and to the buyer. So really the first thing about negotiating is you need to believe in your deal. You need to believe that if you sell it at that price, the end buyer's getting a good deal, and they're gonna be happy, whether they're gonna be living in the house or they're an investor that's gonna try to turn around and make money themselves. And to that end, once you believe in your deal, then as you're interacting with buyers, to me, it's all about establishing trust. That's the most important thing, is as early on as you can in a conversation with a potential buyer, is let them know that they can trust you. And the way you do that is they're going to ask you questions about the house, maybe about the area. And to me, if you don't know the answer, that's what you say. You literally say, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. As opposed to making something up to try to maybe position the house better than it otherwise might be. And if you do know the answer, say so. And so to me, again, we walk through a house, we look at it, we take note of the things we think the house would need, and we're okay sharing that with any buyer if they ask. And often they might even ask a general question like, what's wrong with the house? And I like to tell them what I've seen that I think would need attention. And I often will say to them, a lot of times that question might come through, why is it priced so low? Which I love to get that question.
Right.
But I try to head off, where they might be going with that is there something about the house that you're hiding and not telling me? And I'll tell them right up front, there is nothing like that. We haven't noticed any serious problem. We're not desperate to get rid of it. This is just what we do. We acquire these houses at a certain price. We try to sell them so somebody's getting a great deal. Next is when you get before you get into the nitty-gritty of a number, I try to make sure that they have an all-in number that we're talking about right up front. So for example, in our deals, we charge closing costs, and we do not give tax prorations. And if you don't know what that is, we're going to come to that in a little bit. But what that means is if we're talking about a number, say we're selling a house for $50,000, I want them to know that on top of that there'd be closing costs, and that we're not giving them money to be able to pay their taxes at a later date. In Indiana, taxes are a year in arrears. So you typically on a sale, you give money to off of the sale price, and then they use that money theoretically to pay the taxes later. We do not give those tax prorations. So I let the buyers know that up front before they spit a number out at me. And it doesn't always work because you can't always read their mind, but I try to make sure that we're talking about an all-in number. So after the fact, we don't agree on a number, and then I say, oh, by the way, there's an extra $1,000 closing costs, because again, that I think hurts the trust factor. And then once they make a less than full price offer, one of the things I've learned over the years is to ask them, how did they arrive at that number? So let's say we're offering the house for $50, and they throw out an offer of $40, and I like to find out from them, how did you arrive at $40? What do you see the ARV being? What do you see the repairs being? And a lot of times, that engages them in a conversation, and maybe they'll educate me on something I didn't realize about the house or the area, and vice versa happens as well. But what I've often found by asking that question is that's all the money they've got. The reason they offered $40 is they don't have more than $40, and so they're hoping to get this $50,000 house for $40 only because that's all the money that they've got access to. And then have a way to get back to them. If they're not going to give you a full price offer, and you don't want to try to make a decision on the spot, just have a transition line to be able to say, you know what, let me take that offer to my partners. I work with partners. I work with someone on this. Let me discuss that with them, and I'll get back to you. That way you don't have to come up with thinking on your feet if you struggle with that, and trying to go back and forth on the phone with them then. And then what I like to do there again to establish more trust is to say, can I call you back in the next hour, or can I call you back later today or something, and then actually do that.
Yeah, actually make sure that you stick to what you're going to say.
Exactly. Again, that just, again, all this along the line is you're trying to show them that I'm not trying to take advantage of you. I want to make money, of course, they understand that, and I want you to get a good deal at the end of the day. And then lastly, realize that sometimes the takeaway or no is the best solution for everybody. Sometimes if they're locked in at a number that really isn't going to make enough money for you to make the deal worth it, and they're not budging, telling them that that's not going to work is totally okay. Just because you've got someone that's interested, has seen the house, wants it, has the money to buy it, doesn't mean that they're the right buyer necessarily. And you have to be comfortable with that. Early on, when I was first selling, it was really tempting to say, well, I've got this bird in the hand. I'm only going to be making a few thousand. I think this deal is worth us making 8 or 10, but I've got this 3,000 profit in my hand. What do I do? And the best thing I've learned over time with those things is, if you believe in your numbers, if the numbers are right, stick with that, and you'll eventually be able to sell it. It doesn't mean it works every single time that way, of course, but don't be willing to give in just because I know I've got a sure sale right here. And sometimes no is just the best answer for everybody. So that's what I've got for you today.
Awesome, some valuable stuff, and hopefully we talked about Pete having a lot of buyers out there and a lot of people he's talked to. Hopefully they're not watching this video and seeing all of Pete's tactics, but if they are, then you know how Stone Cold Pete is. So all right, so awesome stuff, Pete. Thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thanks,
and if this did bring you value, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, like us on Facebook, and also subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching it that way. That's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.